The NRMA says that while most people are doing the right thing, a few hundred claims have been less than honest. And the Insurance Council of Australia, while stopping short of calling it fraud, manager Chris Henry says the practice is a nuisance factor, further delaying legitimate payouts.
But we are concerned presently that there is emerging a small number of try-on claims, as we call them, where people, both residential and commercial property owners, are attempting to gain from their insurance policy repairs which are not attributable to earthquake damage.
Of the future, Mr Henry said insurance premiums will inevitably rise. The huge payout dictates this. However, he said competition between companies means a reasonable approach will be maintained.
The premium is a reflection of claims paid out, and if the amount paid out on claims rises, then premiums would automatically rise to compensate.
For now, the insurance industry says most small claims have been settled. The second phase is about to begin, where major reconstruction work will be undertaken.
The Newcastle earthquake is now the largest natural disaster in the Australian insurance history. It now exceeds Cyclone Tracy in Darwin. We have the expectation that at the end of the day, the earthquake will cost us some $800 million.
When the families of the missing crews saw these pictures taken that Friday night by the RAAF, they were convinced more than ever that the four men were alive. They asked for a meeting with directors of the Federal Sea Safety Centre to present new evidence which they hoped would see the search resumed. But they say the meeting was a farce from the beginning.
Very disappointed and let down. We believe it was a total sham. We don't believe they came here to listen to an even-sided argument at all. They were sent by the Minister, we believe, to placate the families and possibly just give a bit of sympathy and to push the official line again that they weren't going to reopen the search.
According to the family, yesterday was the first time Sea Safety had seen the RAAF photos and had received only extracts from the Air Force mission reports. The families have studied those reports and say major discrepancies exist between what the RAAF saw and did and what the Sea Safety Centre in Canberra knew when it called off the search after 3 days.
Well, I think if you're a bank manager or an accountant, I think they'd be sacked because you don't make a decision that affects people's lives unless you see all the facts at hand, and there were a lot of things that they had no idea or they'd misinterpreted, we believe, because they didn't know about them or didn't really want to know about them.
Without government help, the families will continue to fund their own private search and say they are seeking advice on whether to take legal action against the Federal Sea Safety Centre. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
The game was only 2 minutes old when centre Jason Martin crossed for the Blues' first try. The horror start could have been even worse for the Queenslanders when New South Wales looked set to score again before they'd touched the ball. The final pass was ruled forward and the Maroons finally had a chance to settle down. Captain Craig Weston trimmed the deficit with this penalty and gave some nearby bowlers some unwanted work. The Blues stretched the lead again thanks to hooker Peter Besgrove, but Queensland replacement Kieran Meyer brought the house down with this reply. Another Martin try gave New South Wales a handy 16-8 break at half-time. When local boy Craig Makepeace crossed just after, it was as good as over. The Maroons hit back with this try to winger Lindsay Houston, showing all the skills that brought a smile to Don Furner's face.
When you look at those high-skilled boys go out there and play like they did there today, both sides, the skills that were showing, all I know is the Australian Rugby League haven't any worries about the future and the depth of talent.
Final score, New South Wales 32, Queensland 16. The Frenchman spent the day sampling the fare of the Tyrrell's estate at Pecolbin. If their form doesn't improve dramatically, they may soon be tasting the Rugby League world's grapes of wrath. Yesterday they were humbled 26-10 by an ordinary North Coast outfit, their second loss in 3 matches on what has already been dubbed the Tour de Farce. But half those playing seem set to be selected in the test side.
I think maybe half of the team, but we have to wait after the next game to build the test side. And sure, we have a lot of injuries, 2 injuries, Jacques Molinaire and David Fraisse. We cannot give the answer for the moment.
But the French are far from worried. They blame their poor form on a lack of crowd support and give themselves a great chance of upsetting the Kangaroos in next week's clash at Parkes.
Could you beat the Australians, do you think?
I think the French side on one game could be very strong.
This building in Scott Street has not always looked this good. For the past 15 years, it's been unoccupied, used as a warehouse and storage area, or simply left empty. Architect Edward Duke bought the building in September last year and has since made it both his office and his home. Rent from a shop below provides income, which supplements his business upstairs. From work to home, it's just a short walk into this open-plan 2-bedroom apartment with sweeping harbour views.
One of the reasons that Newcastle has a lot of problems is because there aren't enough people living in the city. The East End is fine, but there's a whole ribbon of street, Hunter Street, where there are just no people, and it's devoid of life and vitality.
Is there potential in those buildings to do a similar thing as you have here?
Oh, I should think most of them are capable of that sort of thing, yes.
Just around the corner in Bolton Street, another building is undergoing a rejuvenation. For more than 2 years, the upper floors of the Zurich Insurance Office have remained empty, the owner unable to find tenants. New plans revealed today will breathe life into a once tired building.
Well, basically is to retain the office component on the first 2 floors and to convert the top floor into apartments. There'll be 3 apartments.
Total cost of the upgrade will be $500,000, some of that offset by earthquake insurance work. And while in the past Newcastle Council may not have enthusiastically embraced such plans, it now sees great merit in a residential component in future development. It's even willing to relax car parking requirements, which have been costly add-ons to projects in the past.
The car parking generated by that office space would in fact be even more than the car parking demand generated by the use of that same space for housing. So we don't believe that the use of those upper floors will generate a higher parking demand.
To the untrained eye, it looks like an ordinary bread shop, but follow your nose to Belmont and you'll find a breeding ground for champions. The boys from the bread basket this week captured an Australian title after a panel of experts judged their loaves to be the best in the land.
They don't actually taste it like some people think in bread shows. It's not like wine shows where you're tasting it. They actually can tell enough from picking up the loaf and smelling it, and that tells them how the fermentation is and whether it's going to be an edible loaf.
Still, it's not all cut and thrust in the competitive world of baking, although there's obviously quite a bit of dough involved. The lads insist they do it for love, not money, but admit it is a great way to make a crust.
We make a policy of producing the best quality bread that we can every day of the week. So the reason for going into the shows is to improve quality, improve our standard of loaf, because the recipes we use for showbread is identical to the one that the customer buys.
Shop owners admit business looked grim after December 28, but the cash registers were working flat out today as thousands of bargain hunters flooded into the city.
We've just never seen it this busy before. It's really, really busy.
Businesses estimated they doubled their usual turnover during frenzied trading. Shoppers were looking for cut-price bargains in everything from cars to clothing during a shopping bonanza. Some took the crazy sale theme a little too literally. The Newcastle City Centre Committee helped organise a series of games and competitions calculated to bring new life into the city's heart.
Well, we've had our earthquake, that's behind us. Maybe in another 100 years our descendants might look at another one, but we're not going to. And the city centre's bright and alive. People are happy to return here and they're happy to shop here. It's very good.
Australs started their new import Milan Maletic in their strongest lineup so far this year. Against a young Wollongong outfit, it was obvious Australs were superior, and in the 7th minute Gary Phillips took the long throw. It was beautifully flicked on by Wayne Bailey, and a reinstated Brett Porter did the rest. Newcastle continued to attack, and new boy Maletic went agonisingly close when he hit the crossbar with a superb header. Namoff was proving a handful, and Mike Bugard stretched the keeper with a header from a Namoff corner. Just before half-time, Namoff drilled one from a long way out and Bejusis made a brilliant save. The second half developed into a crawl, with Australs unable to penetrate and Wollongong short on the goods to force Australs into error. But an unsavoury incident marred the whole game. Namoff crossed into the box where replacement player Simon Brand went in to try and get a foot to the ball, but hit the keeper in the face instead. Declan McAvoy raced in and hit Brand with his knee, and in retaliation, Brand collected McAvoy with a right cross. When things were sorted out, Brand and McAvoy were both sent off and Bejusis was taken to hospital with a gash above the eye. Back to action, and the one remaining flay at the Wollongong goal was a drive by Kristevski, but it was parried away and Austral landed the win, 1-0.
Just over a month ago, Trades Hall Council placed a ban on demolition work on the Donalds building, with many believing it could be saved. But after an inspection by aldermen, the building was found to be beyond repair. With a commitment from the owner that it would be redeveloped in line with Council's blueprint for Hamilton, demolition began. Today, a few bricks are all that's left of the 125-year-old building. The owners have put a development application to Council to rebuild. If successful, it's believed the new building will be similar to the old, with a number of shops and office space upstairs. The next building to be demolished in Hamilton is Clancy's Supermarket in Beaumont Street.
The controllers are unhappy about plans by City Rail to centralise operations in Sydney. They say the proposal to do away with the Broadmeadow Control Centre will cost 80 local jobs, with only 3 transferred to Sydney. Talks today between State Rail's Industrial Committee and their union broke down, and the controllers will meet at the District Park Tennis Club at 10:30 in the morning to discuss their position. The result is that no trains will be able to run between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Intercity trains will terminate at Gosford, with buses replacing them for the trip into and out of Newcastle. Buses will also be used between Newcastle and Wyong and Newcastle and Maitland, with another bus to leave Singleton for Newcastle at 10 o'clock. The 8:28 to Singleton service has been cancelled. A spokesman for City Rail said XPT services will also be affected during the 4-hour stoppage. But he had every hope that things would be back to normal by mid-afternoon.
With regard to the management report, we felt the decision to be binding on both parties for positions in Broadmeadow, and they virtually agree with that. In the joint working part of that, not a thing was resolved. And this morning, Ken Gallagher walked in and officially dropped out the table, which I was expecting.
It was just after midnight when the northbound refrigerated Pantechnicon veered across the grass median strip and the southbound lanes of the freeway before slamming into a rock wall. The vehicle then fell onto its side and slid another 30 metres, throwing the driver out and pinning him in a roadside drain underneath the crushed cabin. His passenger, in a sleeping compartment, scrambled free uninjured, but the driver suffered severe spine, chest and internal injuries and was first taken to Gosford Hospital for assessment. That would have been the end of it, but for an unlucky motorist travelling south who came around a bend and into the wreck.
He's come to rest on its side, and a vehicle coming south has clipped the back end of the rig while it was on its side. That vehicle rolled and flipped and ended up 70 odd metres down the road there.
That driver was extremely fortunate to suffer only minor abrasions to his arm. The southbound section of the freeway was blocked until about 8 o'clock this morning, while the semi's load of fruit and vegetables was salvaged and the wrecked vehicle could be removed. In the meantime, traffic was diverted via the old Pacific Highway.
Train controllers at Broadmeadow are the nerve centre for State Rail's operations north of Wyong. Newcastle was one of 4 centres in the state, but that's been whittled back, and local controllers now believe Sydney will absorb its operations within 5 years. State Rail's plans to transfer control of Northern City Rail operations to Sydney with the loss of 5 jobs in Newcastle is seen as the first step. All 40 train controllers at Broadmeadow stopped work amid concerns that they would be next. State Rail made arrangements to carry passengers on all services in northern New South Wales. For XPT travellers from Brisbane, it meant air travel, but for Newcastle commuters, it meant lengthy bus rides as trains stood idle at the stations. Union leaders say the controllers are fighting for their jobs and to keep an important centre operating in Newcastle.
We're also very concerned, of course, for the economy of Newcastle, because City Rail has proposed a staff review which will eliminate 80 positions off the suburban railway stations in Newcastle, and that coupled with this means 180 jobs going out of Newcastle's economy.
At one stage of the meeting, members threatened to stay off work indefinitely after hearing that State Rail had cancelled an award payment of $25 a week to the men for allegedly breaching an agreed dispute procedure. Controllers agreed to return, pending talks with a management working party.
The politicians have been and gone. Now the hard work lies ahead. The task will be to convince a developer to part with anything up to $300 million to transform the dilapidated Honeysuckle goods yard into a revitalised and vibrant city centre. The Hunter Economic Development Corporation has shown 3 potential developers over the site. General Manager Peter Chapelot says it will be the job of the soon-to-be-formed Land Development Corporation to draft a master plan and market it to Australia and beyond, perhaps to those with a yen for Newcastle.
There's got to be some sort of balance. If the money is physically not available in Australia, then the logical thing is to go out and seek venture partners with people who have the money and have the motivation. And the way I would see it is, it's government land, perhaps state government, local government, who knows, could have some sort of joint venture with an offshore group.
But the more immediate concerns in Newcastle today centres on the transport implications of the government package. An impromptu public survey reveals a mixed reaction to the plans to end the rail line at Civic.
I think it's terrible. It's going to spoil Newcastle.
I think it's good because there's going to be, it's going to make this area a whole lot updated, I guess, and prettier.
Shocking. Shocking. Shocking.
I think it's a good idea, leaving it at Civic.
All they're thinking about themselves. And I consider them the disabled people.
Very much in favour of it.
I reckon it's terrible.
Do you?
I do.
Stinks.
Yes, I think they should end the line at Civic.
City Rail estimates the new interchange will cost $44 million. Local manager John Zantiotis anticipates the line could end at Civic within 2 years. Leslie Robinson for NBN News.
If Agriculture and Rural Affairs Minister Ian Armstrong is fishing for a fight, Newcastle's recreational fishermen have taken the bait.
Oh, they stink. What are they going to do to stop the pros killing everything? It's all right to say they're going to put bag limits on, but what about the tourist industry up the coast and the pros are killing it, not the amateurs?
The limits apply to more than 25 common types of fish, including 10 for snapper, 20 for bream, 5 kingfish and 20 blue swimmer crabs. Any fishermen found with these quantities in their possession could face severe fines. The government says the limits are to stop what they call shamateurism, amateur fishermen who sell their catch on the black market. At a crowded meeting at West Leagues Club tonight, more than 500 fishermen spoke out against the proposal. They say it'll ruin their sport on the rare occasions they pull a good catch, destroy the fishing service industry, even affect tourism.
I'm going to Southwest Rocks next week for a fortnight with 3 of my fishing mates. I can bring home a total of 20 bream for 14 days, not 20 bream a day. And that's going to make the trip useless. It's not worthwhile making the venture.
The legislation is set to come in on July 1st. Two cars, a Cortina and a Nissan Bluebird, collided head-on a straight stretch of Nelson Bay Road soon after 6 tonight. The driver of the Cortina, a 30-year-old Raymond Terrace woman, died in the impact. Her 6-year-old passenger was freed from the tangled wreck by rescue workers and transferred to the Mater with internal injuries. The driver of the other car, a 20-year-old man, was trapped inside his vehicle for an hour and a half, suffering multiple fractures plus head and internal injuries. He was transferred by rescue helicopter to the Royal Newcastle Hospital, where he is in a serious condition.